A shadow moves at the edge of your vision. Your shoulders jump. Your heart slams once, hard, before you even turn your head. You don't decide to flinch. You just flinch. And by the time your conscious mind catches up and says, oh, it was just a curtain, your body has already sounded the alarm, braced for impact, and started preparing to run. So what is actually happening in that half second? The answer is far stranger than a simple reflex, and it starts almost 300 million years before you were born. Here's the reframe. You like to think of yourself as a rational creature. You weigh evidence, you make decisions. You are, in your own mind, the calm pilot of your own body. But that flinch reveals a different truth. Somewhere inside your skull sits a much older passenger, one that has been quietly steering the ship for far longer than the rational part of you has even existed. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't wait for facts. It reacts first and explains itself later, if it explains itself at all. Why would evolution build a brain that lies to itself about who's in charge? To understand that, you have to go back to the amygdala, a small, almond-shaped cluster of neurons buried deep in your temporal lobe. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent decades mapping exactly how fear moves through the brain, and what he found rewired how scientists think about emotion itself. There are two separate pathways that carry a threat signal from your eyes and ears into your brain. One is slow and smart. It runs through the visual cortex, gets analyzed, compared to memory, checked against context. This is the pathway that eventually tells you that was just a curtain. The other pathway is fast and stupid. Ledoux called it the low road. It skips the thinking brain entirely and sends a crude, blurry signal straight to the amygdala. No context, no detail, just a rough shape that might be a threat. And the amygdala, upon receiving that rough shape, does not pause to consider nuance. It fires. That firing happens in about 12 milliseconds. Your fastest conscious thought takes closer to 500 milliseconds to form. Do you see the gap? For nearly half a second, your body is already reacting to a danger your mind hasn't even identified yet. Muscles tense, pupils dilate, blood rushes away from your digestive system and toward your limbs. All of this before the slow, smart pathway has even finished loading the picture. You are not flinching because you decided the shadow was dangerous. You are flinching because some ancient part of your brain decided for you and told the rest of you about it afterward, as if it had been your idea all along. This is where the story gets older and stranger. That low road wasn't built for shadows in your living room. It was built for a world where the difference between reacting in 12 milliseconds and reacting in 500 milliseconds was the difference between living and dying. Picture an early hominin walking through tall grass on the African savanna, roughly 2 million years ago. A coiled shape in the grass could be a stick. It could also be a snake. The hominin who paused to carefully analyze the shape, gather more visual data, and rationally weigh the odds before reacting was, on average, more likely to get bitten. The hominin who flinched first and asked questions later survived to pass on that flinch. Over millions of years and countless generations, natural selection wasn't optimizing your brain for accuracy. It was optimizing it for speed. Because in a world full of venomous snakes, ambush predators, and sudden falls, a fast, wrong guess kept you alive far more often than a slow right one. Psychologist Robert Zajonc, working decades before Ledoux mapped the neural pathways, proposed something that sounded almost heretical at the time, that emotional reactions can happen before and independently of cognitive judgment. He called it affective primacy. You don't need to fully recognize something to feel something about it. You can feel the flicker of fear before your brain has even finished the sentence, "What was that?" For years, psychologists assumed feeling followed thinking, like a caboose behind an engine. Zajonc flipped the order. Sometimes the caboose is pulling the train. And here's the counterintuitive twist. This ancient alarm system doesn't just misfire on shadows and curtains, it misfires constantly on things that were never actually dangerous, because the low road can't tell the difference between an old threat and a new coincidence. Researcher Michael Davis spent years studying what's called the acoustic startle reflex, the jump you make at a sudden loud noise. He found that this reflex can be measured, timed, and even amplified depending on your existing emotional state. If you are already anxious, the same clap of thunder produces a bigger physical jump than it would on a calm day. Your amygdala isn't just reacting to the world, it's reacting to the world through the lens of whatever threat level it already believes you're at. This is why a stressful week at work can leave you jumping at a phone buzzing on the table, flinching at a coworker suddenly appearing behind you, or feeling your pulse spike over an email that 10 seconds later turns out to be nothing at all. Your amygdala isn't checking your calendar. It doesn't know the difference between a predator in the grass and a deadline in your inbox. It only knows one language: threat detected, react now. Which means the very system that once kept your ancestors alive is, in the modern world, often working against you. You are not walking through tall grass anymore. Most of what triggers your startle reflex today isn't going to bite you. It's a notification sound, a raised voice in another room, someone standing too close behind you in line, a door slamming somewhere in the building. None of these things can actually hurt you, and yet your body still activates the full ancient sequence. Heart rate up, breath short, muscles tight, exactly as if a predator had just stepped out of the grass. Have you ever wondered why a harmless jump scare in a movie can leave your heart pounding for a full minute afterward, long after your rational mind has confirmed there's nothing chasing you? That's the low road refusing to hand control back to the slow road right away. It got there first, and it doesn't let go easily. There is something almost humbling in this. You like to believe your reactions reflect your judgment, that when you flinch, some rational part of you has assessed a real threat. But most of the time, that flinch belongs to a system built for a world that no longer exists, reacting to modern stimuli using instructions written millions of years ago in a language of grass, shadows, and coiled shapes. The amygdala doesn't know you live in an apartment with locked doors and no leopards. It only knows what it was built to know, and it keeps doing its job, whether or not that job is still necessary. So the next time something makes you jump, before you even know what it was, pause for a second and notice what just happened. You didn't choose that reaction. You inherited it. It traveled to you across roughly 2 million years through every ancestor who flinched first and lived long enough to have children, all the way down to this exact moment, in this exact room, at this exact shadow crossing your vision. Your body's not malfunctioning when it reacts before your mind catches up. It's doing precisely what it was built to do. The shadow crosses your vision one more time. Your shoulders jump again. And this time, you understand exactly why.